good evening, or whenever you're viewing this, and welcome to episode number 12 of the Roar Rundown Sports Podcast. I'm Chris Gay, joined by my co-hosts Zach Cloud and Weston Bailey. We decided to dress a little bit casual. Weston didn't get the memo, best dressed out of the three of us, but it's a little chilly outside. We've completely skipped over fall and gotten straight to winter, so that's always great, but some great things are happening on the campus of Ouachita with a lot of stuff. And, I didn't even put this in our memo, but Weston, I know the baseball team, you guys released the schedule.
We did.
What are your initial thoughts on that?
It's an aggressive schedule. We had an amazing year last year, and we're obviously hoping to continue that success. And I think Coach Howard really wants to put us to the test, especially early on in the season. The first 2 weekends of the season, we're going up to play regional hosts from last year. Wow. Before we even start conference. So that'll be 6 straight games of really competitive playoff atmosphere baseball to open the season. And so I think that with a good start to the season, we're looking pretty good.
Well, that's good, and we expect great things out of your group. But some great things, as I mentioned, have been happening, and I know everybody wants to hear about Battle of Ravine. That's all everybody wants to talk about. But some good news first: the women's soccer team are GAC champs, so congratulations to them. Of course, we had a chance to talk with Jamie Fowler and Grayson Turner a few weeks ago, and now they're GAC champs. They were able to come away with a 2-0 victory over Oklahoma Baptist. And, of course, it was in Shawnee because Oklahoma Baptist was eventually the top team in the Great American Conference. So congrats to Ouachita and even Coach Wright, Kevin Wright. He was after the conclusion of the game before Oklahoma Baptist. This was actually on the eve of the Oklahoma Baptist game. Coach Wright was named the GAC Coach of the Year for women's soccer. We also had 10 players make the All-GAC team. So we had 4 players make the first team. Jamie Fowler as a forward, Abby Inman and Abby Moore as defenders, and then Michelle Snow as a goalkeeper. And then Hattie Gardner and Tegan Jahussi made the second team, and then Grayson Turner, Sydney Perry, Allison Reese, and Emery Thomas made the honorable mention list. So, and then also Abby Moore, Ashley Vanna, they were named the league's elite scholar athletes, and then Ashton Inman and Abby Inman, who are, of course, sisters, were named distinguished scholars, and you get that with at least a 3.7 GPA. So on top of that success, some individual accolades for all those players, and especially a lot of them are seniors like Snow and Fowler and Grayson Turner, Sydney Perry. So just great to see that. But as of just a few hours ago, of course, we are filming on Monday, and just about 3 hours before this, it was just announced that Ouachita, of course, by winning out to the GAC, they have an automatic bid into the NCAA Tournament, and they will be playing as the 8th seed against number 1 Washburn. That will be this Friday. So it's going to be a tough test for Ouachita, but that's what a lot of people expected was the matchup against Washburn. So we really look forward to seeing the coverage of that game. Now, going on chronologically, what's happened this past week. So OBU Volleyball played in their Battle of the Ravine, and this was at Henderson's side. This was on Monday, and Ouachita lost in 5 sets. And statistically, I can't really make a decision about who was the better team because, well, obviously Henderson won. But OBU did not shoot well. Henderson shot very well, or compared to Ouachita. But Ouachita had almost double-digit fewer errors than Henderson. Henderson had 45 errors in these 5 sets. And I don't know. And then you look at the individual numbers. Kayla Steinmeier and Emily Adams were just killing them.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And this game looks extremely close. And I'm pretty sure both, even when they played here at Ouachita, it also went to 5 sets, if I recall from early on in the season. I mean, these two teams just go at each other every single time they play each other. And I was not surprised to see this game go to 5 sets.
Yeah, a big deciding factor in Henderson coming away with the win is probably their 8 service aces. That's a little bit more than usual, but for our girls, for OBU, Kayla Steinmeier, yeah, like Chris said earlier, she went off with 17 kills, and she also had a service ace of her own, and she also hit at 31%. And Emily Adams was also at 31%. So they were both on fire. Emily Adams with 11 kills and 2 solo blocks. But after them, Haley Fairchild, she was right behind them with 7 kills, and Leah Gardner also had 7 kills and a block assist. And Courtney Hansen, she did her thing like usual, leading us with assists. She had 39 and also had 3 kills. So even though we lost in 5 sets, our stars, they came to play like they always do.
They did. What also helps Henderson is the fact that 2 players had 30 or more assists. Wow. We're used to seeing Courtney Hansen get 30 assists plus on her own. It's very unusual to see 2 setters on one team get 30 assists. So, and it's just unusual to see. But they would get redemption later on the week. We'll cover that in a minute. But wrestling, of course, their season started the week before. They lost at Carl Albert State 20-26 on Wednesday, but we did have a few wrestlers that had victories and added to the point total for Ouachita. So Don Paul, Parker Henry, Jalen Otero, and James Anderson, they all had victories in their respective categories. So, as I mentioned, Ouachita Volleyball, they would get some redemption, and their final regular season game was against Arkansas Tech at Russellville, and they were able to defeat Tech in 3 sets, and this was Thursday. And Ouachita, they really played well. That hitting percentage went up by pretty much double from the game before. They really didn't have that many errors. They only had 22 errors, and it seemed like Kayla Steinmeier was once again the catalyst in that game.
Once again, I mean, you're exactly right. Kayla Steinmeier with 12 kills, 1 block assist, hitting 37%. I mean, holy cow. And I think the big thing is that Arkansas Tech only broke the score 20 once. I mean, these were commanding victories, and I think as you get down to the end of your season, which, every team wants to do, you end the season on a high note, and this team has a lot of momentum going into the postseason, and once you get in, anything can happen, right? So they're in the conference tournament now, and so, I don't exactly remember who they're playing first. Do you guys know who they drew?
Oklahoma Baptist.
Alrighty, so, carrying momentum into that, and I think that's actually going to be a really good game.
Well, it is going to be a good game considering we've defeated Oklahoma Baptist, and, of course, Ouachita has only lost 2 games since
they've been hot.
Well, yeah, and Oklahoma Baptist was the team that they really started their streak against because it was Oklahoma Baptist, SNU, Monticello, and then it was Harding. Yeah, and then
swept Harding.
Yeah, so and then of course SAU was in there as well, and so they've just been outstanding and add Arkansas Tech to that win total as well. So swim and dive, they went to Oklahoma City for the Oklahoma Christian Invite, and this was from Friday to Saturday. And both squads had a pretty good performance. They're, of course, playing against multiple teams. The men were playing against 7 different teams, and they placed second. And then the women placed third of 8 teams. So we didn't have a lot of individual winners. And, of course, we're performing against multiple teams at once. But Anna Phelps seemed like she was the MVP from this event. For the women, she won the 1,000 freestyle, the 200 butterfly. And I'm not sure if this is a typo or not, but it said the 1,650 freestyle. That's
wow,
a lot. After also doing the 1,000 freestyle,
goodness,
I don't know if that was a typo, but if it wasn't, then congrats, Anna Phelps. That was incredible. But Dee Christensen, also in the women, she won the 100 butterfly, and we only had one first place finisher from the men being Elijah Christensen. He won the 200 butterfly. But as I said, there were a lot of other swimmers that finished second or third in these various events, which, of course, wherever you finish, you get a certain amount of points, and that adds to your total. The men had 948 total points. That was right behind their host, Oklahoma Christian, with 976. Now, the women weren't as close to the first and second finishers, but they did have 621 points behind Oklahoma Christian, who finished first, and Western Colorado, who finished second. So now, we had talked about in last week's episode that basketball, the season's about to get going, and we started it off with a win for the women. They won their season opener versus champion Christian out of Hot Springs, 82-59. I was on the call with Chase Hartzell for that game, and it was a good game. I just felt like we were still knocking off the rust. We had 18 turnovers, which is not great, but it's not a bad number, especially that's something you'll probably see come conference time, that a lot of teams are kind of maybe hitting around just under maybe 16, 17 turnovers per game. That's probably average. But Champion Christian is NCAA, which is and I can't remember what it stands for exactly, but it's basically its own separate league, kind of like how NAIA is different from NCAA.
Yep.
They are their own league for Christian colleges, and that's what Champion Christian is. They're very small. I guess they are private. I'm not sure about that, but they are a Christian college, and smaller competition, but this team won out that entire league last year, going 21-3, and then winning as the number 1 seed. So had to throw them a little bit of respect. I mean, the score doesn't look like they played particularly well, but they still played outstanding. They outshot Ouachita when it came to free throws. They shot 72%. And they did pretty well scoring in the paint, as well as scoring points off of turnovers against Ouachita. But Ouachita still had the upper hand when it came to field goal percentage. They shot 41% from the field, about 38% from three, which is something that we're used to seeing for Ouachita. Now, something else that didn't help for Ouachita, Madeline Tipton, they're now the second. She was the third leading scorer from last year's squad, and now is going to be one of the key returners. She did not play in this game. I can only speculate she was out for injury. But they definitely missed her. But Lainey Mears had 21 points. She is the second leading scorer from last year's squad. Michaela Miller, she led the team in just about every statistical category. She transferred up. She had another year of eligibility, but she couldn't stick around because I don't know what it's called. I guess she's a grad transfer.
Yes.
If she had stuck around, since she was honored for senior day last year, if she had stuck around, she'd be out of eligibility. Yep. But because if she leaves, she has one more year. So she moved on up to, and I've been saying LaSalle, and I've been told that's actually not how to pronounce it, but LaSalle in Philadelphia, Division I university. And it looks like she's going to be a major part of that team. So
nice.
Congrats to her. And some OBU players that have had success playing D1 after playing for a bit with us. One that comes to mind is Aspen Thornton. In 2021, she led all of Division II in scoring and just played as a freshman, too, and moved on up to Abilene Christian and has been a really good player for them, averaging double digits. So, but anyway, so we have a good track record with players that have moved on up to Division I for a little bit. But yes, as I said, Lainey Mears, 21 points. She also had 4 steals, was 5 of 12 from three-point land. She's an excellent marksman. She started off slow in that game, but once she found a rhythm, they couldn't stop her. Heidi Robinson, she's a sophomore from Marmaduke, Arkansas. I imagine nobody knows where that is. It's a tiny, tiny town. But she really had a strong freshman campaign, was one of the many freshmen that Coach Dallimore brought in. But she had 17 points and shot 5 at 11 from three-point land. Grayson Williams was a transfer from Louisiana Monroe from last year, and she started off pretty well coming off the bench, having 13 points, 3 steals, 5 rebounds, 4 of them being offensive rebounds, 7 assists, and only missing 4 shots. And what's interesting is that I've seen her play more point guard, pushing the ball up the floor, and a lot of that is no Madeline Tipton. And, of course, you got to find new players in, not necessarily as a replacement, but in to stand in for what Michaela Miller was able to do for Ouachita last year. Brooke Smith, a freshman, made her college debut and had 11 points, 7 rebounds, a block, and a steal, and only missed 1 shot. Mackenzie Schulmuller had 11 points and 3 of 8 from the three-point line. Joey Babel, one of the rotational point guards for Ouachita, she actually was tied on the team for the most rebounds with 7, and 4 of them were offensive rebounds. She had 5 assists, 3 points, and a steal. So I'm really interested in seeing what that group can do. And I actually had a chance to talk with Coach Dallimore right after the conclusion of the game. Let's take a quick look at that.
I'm here with Coach Dallimore. Coach, thank you for joining me today, and congrats on the opening win.
Thanks. I thought we played well. First of all, let me give God all the glory, honor, and praise. I got frustrated tonight. We credit to them, the second half, they totally outplayed us. I thought the first half, first probably 15 minutes of the game, we really played well. We valued the basketball. We took care of it. And then we lost our edge. We lost our intensity. We started turning the ball over. Defensively, we were gambling kind of crazily and just kind of lost our momentum and couldn't get it really back. We really had a good flow in the first half going, and we came out in the second half. We just didn't play well. But a lot of that has to do with them. They just kept coming at us. And, Anthony, he does a great job, and they just kept coming after us. And I guess we thought, they weren't going to keep coming after us, and they outscored us in the third quarter. They probably outscored us in the fourth. We outscored them by 2. But like I said, that first quarter and a half, I thought we played good basketball. But, that's part of the game.
Well, we definitely got to see a great performance from Lainey Mears tonight, and the three-point shooting looked pretty good, too, for your squad. But now with no Michaela Miller on the roster as she's moved on up to LaSalle, but how big of a role is Lainey Mears supposed to expected to kind of get? She's, the second leading scorer last season.
No, I don't think there's any change as far as what her role is. I just think that, she doesn't play the same spot. So I think we're just going to, just kind of flow evolution. Anytime you have a kid graduate like Michaela did, you're going to have to be able to replace them. And so I think we got some good kids who have an opportunity to play that spot. And, we rotated a little bit more than probably we did last year. But, she was a first-team all-conference player. But the players we've got are good players. And so I think they're going to get there. I just think, part of the growing pains, we've got to get better than we did tonight. Like I said, the first 15 minutes, I was pleased with how we took care of the ball, how we defended. And then, we just didn't get it done after that at the level that we need to if we want to be able to compete in this league.
Well, one thing that I observed was throughout the game you made sort of almost rapid substitutions, making sure you have fresh bodies on the floor at any given time. Was that sort of the strategy, or was there anything else involved?
Generally, I'd love to play like that all of the time. It's early in the season. It's non-conference. Usually during the season, I'll probably play 9. I played 12, a pretty decent amount of minutes tonight, or 11. Probably that's a little bit more than what I'll play during the regular season. So you've noticed when we play, we probably sub more than any team in our league except SAU. So we're going to play 9 or 10 anyway. Tonight I played 11 because it's non-conference. And in non-conference, you got to see who's ready for conference.
Well, Coach, what is the one thing you are going to preach to your team coming into this next practice as you prepare for your next game?
Discipline offensively and defensively. Take care of the basketball. Defensively, be in a rotation where we're not leaving people wide open like we did. And that's part of early on in the season. They've played 5 games already, and this was our first live game. And I think defensively, our rotation's just poor, and that's on me. So if we're not getting the job done, that's on me.
It was great talking with Coach Dallimore. I've talked with him a lot over the last couple of years, and he's just a great coach, and he's really got something going with that program, who was picked number 6 in the GAC preseason poll. But now on the other side, for the men's basketball, they also had their season opener on Friday. Yes, on Friday. And it was in Fort Smith versus Central Missouri, and this was a part of the GAC/MIAA Challenge. Now, they would lose their first – actually, they've lost their first 2 games, but by single digits, losing by 6 to Central Missouri. And this game was close. The lead changed 22 times, with it being tied 6 separate times. But Ouachita really shot the ball well. That's something that Coach Nutt's team really didn't do last season, and that's because they didn't have, I don't think, a great depth of scores. Ouachita shot just under 50% from the field. Of course, Central Missouri shot 40% from the field. Now, Ouachita, three-point percentage wasn't great with 31%, but Central Missouri's was a lot worse at 18%. Ouachita shot 87% from free throw line, and Central Missouri shot 86% from the free throw line. And both teams, actually, something that you never see is Ouachita had only 11 turnovers. Central Missouri only had 9. For the first game of the season, I think this was also Central Missouri's first game.
It's a clean game.
It is a clean game, and that's really uncommon to see for a season opener, and you play it so efficiently like that. But Ouachita would get out-rebounded by 10, but it wasn't so much a defensive battle is kind of what it looks like. We only had 3 steals, all from Reggie Martin. They only had 2 steals. It was mostly seemed like a lot of offense. Both of our teams had 32 points in the paint, and so we'll get into some individual stats. So Tyler Haynes was one of the he was the top returning scorer for Ouachita. He had 15 points. Also missed just 2 shots, which he's actually was part of the top 25, and I think even part of top 15 at one point, maybe even top 10 at one point last season in field goal percentage in the country, not just conference, in the country, which is very hard to do when you're playing a 4. And he was playing small ball 5 as well. Emery Knox, he's a transfer from Charleston Southern. We were able to get 4 guys from Division I schools to come down, and Knox had 15 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and shot 50% from the field. And he's a guy that's probably going to run a lot of point and almost take over sort of the role that Laquan Butler Jr. played as the primary scorer. But I think the scoring's going to be a little bit more spread out this season. Reggie Martin, a returner from last year, he had 13 points, 4 assists, and 3 steals. Rollin Belton, the 6'8", 6'9" big man from Marist College, he had 6 points and 3 rebounds in his debut for the Tigers. MJ Leslie, he's a JUCO transfer. He didn't have that great of a debut, but he would later on in their second game, but he had 6 points. Kobe Dunlap is a sharpshooter from last year's squad. He also had 6 points. And then Taryn Williams had 3 points, 8 rebounds. 3 of them were offensive rebounds. Interesting thing about Williams, he was the number 1 player in Arkansas in 2021 in that high school class. And he would go to Louisiana Tech. He spent 2 years there, played a little bit, but he needed to go somewhere where he could get a much larger role. And he didn't play in their next game against Lincoln, Missouri. He's looking like a guy that's probably going to have a big role for Ouachita this season. Now, as I said, we're going chronologically. So this is sort of a heartbreaker for us because Ouachita lost the 96th Battle of the Ravine on Saturday, 31-24. Now, I don't think the score was necessarily indicative of how the game played out.
Me either.
Because all due respect to Henderson, they were outstanding. Andrew Edwards, I had said before the game in our pregame show, Andrew Edwards might be the best quarterback in the conference. And that's saying something because Riley Harms has done a great job, and then DeMillan Brown's done a great job, and Gage Porter. Andrew Edwards is the best quarterback in the conference. He was coming in with just 2 interceptions to his name and 26 passing touchdowns. And it wasn't – he did a great job passing, but he was working us from on the ground. It was just an incredible performance by him. But some sort of light moments for Ouachita. Riley Harms, he didn't have his best performance in the game, had an interception. But he now holds the single-season passing touchdown record for Ouachita with 22, which is incredible considering Ouachita has not had a lot of passing attacks in what we've seen in the past. It's been a plethora of great running backs, and Harms stands out from the rest of some of the quarterbacks we've seen in Ouachita history. Now, I mentioned running backs. Kendall Givens, of course, he got the 50 rushing touchdown mark earlier this year. He just kept adding scores to his name, and now he holds the career scoring record for Ouachita with 378 points. Usually you see that with, like, kickers. Kickers do that a lot. Of course, Will Reichard with Alabama, he has the SEC career scoring record, and I don't know how many he has, but I don't know if it's any close to what Kendall Givens has. And just he's had multiple seasons with 20-plus touchdowns, and he didn't even do so on the ground. He didn't have a rushing touchdown this game. He did have a receiving touchdown, though. But he's got a whole nother year left. So he's going to keep adding to that total, and as well as the rushing touchdown total, and it'll make those records pretty much untouchable until the next great running back that comes through Arkadelphia. Now, Gabe Goodman, he didn't have the best performance in this game. He had, I think, just one missed extra point. No, maybe 2, and I know he missed a field goal as well. And that's not always on the kicker. Sometimes, you have a snapper and a holder, and you got the line that's got to hold him. So I think each one of those misses you can kind of credit to multiple different things and not necessarily Goodman. For a guy that's been so consistent in his career, he now holds the single-season point-after-attempt record with 55 in his last game with Ouachita. Now, in Division II with football, there are bowl games. That's something that a lot of people don't know, is that there are bowl games in Division II like there is in Division I, but they don't have the same weight like they do in Division I because they don't – basically every team, their mindset is it is playoffs or bust. If Georgia loses 2 games, they will still have a good bowl game and they can add to a good bowl game record, and it doesn't look bad on their part. Or maybe Georgia's not the best example. Alabama.
Yeah, Alabama last year.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't necessarily affect Saban's legacy because he added a win for a bowl game. For Division II, nobody really wants to play in bowl games. Again, playoff or bust. And once they don't get it, if they don't make it to the playoffs, they don't feel like they really want to play in a bowl game. So I think Ouachita's season is over. I think it's usually a committee decision from the team to not play in a bowl game. I'm not sure. I don't think there's that many bowl games out there anyway. I could not tell you. But as far as I know, Ouachita's season is over. And what even hurts it more is the fact that, of course, they missed out on the Division II playoffs. Henderson State, with the same record as Ouachita, 9-2 record, made it into the playoffs. I think it's fair to say that every Ouachita fan is just so ticked off. Obviously, we're ticked off that we lost our first Battle Ravine in 8 years. Now, it seemed like all of us students were talking quite a bit before this game. OBU meme page made a big post, and, Henderson played great. They deserved the win. They rushed the field, our own field. We did the same to them last year, so we deserve that at the very least. But still, playoffs, I don't know. I think that's its own separate discussion. We try not to do a lot of controversial type of conversations. We just do straight news, so we're not going to get too into it. But when you beat a team that they lost to, I don't know. they lost to SAU. We beat SAU, so I don't know. Anyway, Ouachita, their season's over, and we'll talk about their. Actually, I'll ask y'all. Look, we have a good group of players, and yes, we can't let that loss define us. When you look at the team we have now, we're only losing a handful of players to graduation. No idea if anybody just decides to stop playing football or guys that transfer out. I don't think we'll have a lot of those. We don't typically, there's not a lot of transfers in Division II. You see that in Division I a lot. I think we're going to keep our core together. I mean, Riley Harm still has another year, and I know he's been battling some injuries, so once he gets some time to rest up, he'll be a lot better. Kendall Givens has another year of eligibility. And then Eli Livingston even has another year of eligibility. I think we'll see him more in the future. And then guys like really everybody that caught a pass in this game is still going to be on the team next year. Mason Brotherton, Carter McElhaney, Chris Hightower, Bo Baker, Connor Flanagan, Jalen McKinney. And I think it's going to be a good team next year. I don't think we really need to fret. I think we could definitely – I think next year we're going to play mad. I think we're going to be angry, and I think we're going to win a lot of games.
Yeah, I do think that the future is bright for this team. Like you said, we have guys coming back, Riley Harms. And what I'm most excited to see, especially from Riley after, like you said, he gets healthy, takes a little bit of time, is this is really the first year that they kind of gave him the reins to throwing the ball and slinging the rock. And I think just like we see in NFL off seasons, D1 off seasons, like when you let a quarterback get comfortable in a second year of a system throwing the ball a lot, he ends up being a lot better. And I'm not saying Riley had a bad season because he didn't whatsoever, but I think a second full year in an offense where they let him pass first, I think could be really beneficial to him. And another thing I'm excited about, which we'll also credit to Riley, is we had a really young offensive line this year after graduating. I think 3 or 4 starters the year beforehand. So getting most of your starting 5 up front returning is, I think, a bigger deal than people are going to give credit to. And so I think this is, especially focusing on the offensive side from my standpoint, I think it's a really, really encouraging thing.
And like Weston mentioned earlier, not only did we have a lot of new faces on the offensive line, but we had a lot of new faces in a lot of areas of our team. So I think considering how many seniors we lost last year, and then the fact that we were still really competitive and we still had a great season this year, that kind of shows that regardless of who we lose or however many people we lose, however many seniors graduate, we're still going to be really good the next season. So next year, just because we're losing seniors, I don't think there's much to worry about there. Every team loses seniors. Every team loses guys that were a big part of their success. So the thing about Ouachita is we're really good at filling holes, next man up type mentality. So I think all our guys are ready to play and really eager to get on the field next year.
The fact that we're all upset about this season and we only lost 2 games, I think that says something about the expectations for the program. And I know all those players have to be sick to their stomachs, not only because Henderson made the playoffs and they'll play Central Missouri in the first round. We're all rooting for Central Missouri for once. But the fact that they played well all season long and, we only lose 2 games. And we had one of the more complete teams we've seen in a long time. And actually, we are losing 3 offensive linemen. Zach Henson, Nathan Turner, and Jarvis Goley are all going to be gone after this season. But we'll still have Dylan Horton, who played right tackle. We'll still have Eli Wilson, who played some right guard, some tackle. Galen Williams, who played some center, some guard, and then we'll also have guys like Hunter Nucci, Cooper Dar, Whit Sparks, guys that played sort of rotational
familiar
snaps.
faces.
Yeah, guys that have been in the program for long enough to where they're going to start next year. I'm not even going to begin to speculate what Coach Knight's going to throw into that rotation. But and then on defense, we're losing big-time names like Trey Proctor, Dawson Miller, and those guys, it hurts to lose. But we're still keeping Josiah Johnson. We're still keeping Chance Taylor, Mikey Gonzalez, Rovell Carter on that D-line. Jax Miller's still going to be around in that linebacker core. We are losing Dante Gibson, so we're definitely losing key guys. But guys like what we've seen, Josh Mumphrey. I know we have not talked about Josh Mumphrey all season long. He's a backup corner, and he played a lot of more like slot corner, if you will, and he played outstanding in this game. He's really hadn't been thrown in that often. Same with Cortavian McMillan. I really didn't know who number 91 was out on the field until this game. I looked him up, and I was like, oh, okay, well, good for you. So he's going to be a part of that D-line rotation in the future. But before we move on to some of the other sports, as I mentioned earlier, the 4-point loss was not necessarily indicative of the score. Henderson had 4 straight scoring drives, 3 straight touchdown drives, and 1 field goal. I think 3 of those scoring trips were in the third quarter alone. That hurts. They started out hot. I don't know what – they obviously got that team fired up at halftime because they were on fire. And we just really couldn't handle them in the third quarter. But we really made a valiant effort to get back. We scored – with Eli Livingston had 3 rushing touchdowns in this game, which was incredible in of itself. But he was able to find the end zone, and then we had to go for an onside kick. We get the onside kick, which was crazy. Part of what hurt, and I'm going to ask y'all about this, y'all were at the game, right? Yeah. Trey Proctor recovered the onside kick for us and took it back to the end zone to score, but there is a rule that says if you recover your own onside kick, you cannot advance the ball. To me, that is a rule that has to change. And I'm not saying that just because, it would have helped us a lot if that was not the rule. I just don't understand it because it's such a rare occurrence anyway. Recovering your own onside kick is hard enough.
Yeah.
And as soon as you touch the ball, 7 guys are on top of you. The fact that Proctor was not touched when he got the ball because it bounced off a bunch of different players' hands was crazy in of itself. I just don't understand why teams can't advance. What do y'all think about that rule?
No, yeah, I wasn't aware of that rule either. I don't really understand why they wouldn't let you return it because I think as long as the ball is inbounds and it goes 10 yards, it should be live. But I'm sure they have reason for it. But not only after this touchdown got called back, we still scored a touchdown later, but it took more time, and we were in crunch time. So It's still it took away a little bit of momentum whenever they called it back, even though we were able to score later. But also, not only did they take this touchdown back, but we also had Connor Flanagan made a great play on a punt return. He had I think it was like a 70-yard punt return. He broke a lot of tackles, probably like 7 or 8 tackles at least.
And it got called back.
Yeah, that got called back. That was earlier in the game, maybe the second quarter, maybe the third quarter. But yeah, it's just we lost by 4 points, but we had touchdowns get called back and plays like that. So we had chances to win the game.
I couldn't agree more. We had plenty of chances to win, and we just didn't. I mean, it happens, right? Everybody has a bad game. It really stinks for us that we had our off game in the game we really needed to perform well. Like you said, Connor Flanagan touchdown that got called back, or I think pretty early in the second quarter, we had a chance for an interception. Henderson's quarterback threw a quick slant right across the middle, just right into the guy's hands, just straight through his hands. We had a drop pick on the sideline late in the second half. I mean, just guys were in position to make plays, and sometimes it doesn't work out for you. It's a tough pill to swallow, but like you said, I think next season it's going to be a revenge tour for some of these guys, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, sort of the bulk of our scoring, our 3 major weapons on offense, Harms, Givens, and Flanagan, they're all going to be seniors next year. I think they're done after next season. They're wanting to get a championship. Not just a GAC championship. They're wanting to get a national championship. And y'all know the future song like Superheroes or whatever, or even Meek Mill's Dreams and Nightmare. Those are the songs that keep going in my mind when I'm thinking about next year's Revenge Tour. They're going to hit some people in the mouth, and we're going to love to see it. Now, We're going to continue on. We talked a lot about football. Now let's speed through everything else. So men's basketball, as I said, played their second game of the season. They lost in the final game of the GAC MIAA Challenge in Fort Smith to Lincoln, Missouri. They lost by 5. Lincoln, Missouri shot better from the field and from the free throw line, but Ouachita still got more rebounds. They just had to shoot. They just needed a little shoot better from the field. And it's also like the second straight game that they've barely gotten over 10 assists, and I think that's got to change. I think we got to see some more, make some extra passes. I think that's what we have to see. And but also, Lincoln had 21 points off of turnovers. Ouachita had 12. They just didn't take advantage of the amount of turnovers, 11 turnovers. I mean, they still did, but still, 12 turnovers by Ouachita. It seemed like Lincoln took advantage of every single one. So that's probably something that I imagine Coach Nutt's crew is going to be working on, is taking advantage of opportunities when they're given them. Now, Tyler Haynes, he had a double-double. First double-double of anybody on the team this season, 16 points, 10 rebounds, and shooting 8 of 13 from the field. Emery Knox had 13 points. MJ Leslie had 12 points and 7 rebounds. That's pretty good from a guard. Reggie Martin had 10 points and a steal. Kobe Dunlap had 8 points. And Roland Belton had 2 points and 9 rebounds. Now, here is the Tiger Prow preview. So wrestling, they will host their first home match of the season on Wednesday versus Ozarks. That will be at 6 p.m. Women's basketball, they will host Mississippi College on Wednesday at 6 p.m. I'll be on the call for that one. Please tune in to that. OBU Volleyball, they will play in the GAC postseason versus Oklahoma Baptist in Hot Springs at Bank OZK Arena on Thursday. That will be a great game. We've beaten them in the regular season. Can we do it in the postseason in advance? I know we're a lower seed in the tournament, but I think we actually have a chance to really make it all the way. We've beaten Harding. We've beaten SNU. We've beaten Southern Arkansas. We've beaten Oklahoma Baptist. We just got to do it one more time, each time. Women's soccer, they will be in the NCAA playoffs, as I mentioned, Friday against Washburn, and I believe that will be maybe about 7 o'clock. Men's basketball, they will have their first home game of the season versus Ecclesia College on Thursday. That will be at 7 p.m. Ecclesia is another one of those. I think they're also part of the NCAA, and they're coming from Northwest Arkansas. I think maybe Centerton or something. OBU Wrestling, they're going to be at the Lindenwood Open in St. Charles, Missouri on Saturday. And then men's basketball will have a game on Saturday as well. They will travel to Cleveland, Mississippi to face Delta State at 4 p.m. So football season is over for Ouachita, but there's still plenty of stuff that's going to be going on. But just wanted to do a little quick GAC overachiever segment. Tanner Hudson mentioned him last week, tight end for the Bengals. He had about his best game of his career last week, and he followed it up with his career high in catches. The former SAU tight end has been great with the Bengals. Even though they lost, he had 6 catches on 7 targets for 33 yards. He now has 14 catches, 126 yards on the season, even though they lost to the Texans. Trinity Benson, he's a former East Central wide receiver. He was just added to the Browns practice squad. He spent some time with Detroit. And then something that I was very glad to see, Gregory Jr., former Ouachita Tiger, the only Ouachita Tiger to be drafted into the NFL, which is interesting considering Cliff Harris is a Hall of Famer. He was just activated to the Jaguars right before their game against the 49ers. Now, they lost, but he still played, and this is after coming back from a hamstring injury that's held him out since week 1, and he had 2 tackles. So he had, I think, 6 tackles in his career debut last year. Didn't have the same type of impact, but still great to see, and I imagine he'll get some more playing time as the season goes around, especially since they got him off of IR and they waived a guy for him to fit on the 53-man roster. That's always something, you're taking the job of somebody else, and you got to really play well. That's the business. But yeah, so again, kind of want to go back to the Battle of Ravine Saturday. That was a huge week. It's a huge week for the city. It's a huge week for the region and for both Henderson and Ouachita schools. So because it was a big week, we had, as I mentioned last week, we had a few special guests. We were supposed to have Charlie Baker. If you don't know who Charlie Baker is, he is the president of the NCAA. He was supposed to make the trip down to Arkadelphia, and he did not, which was unfortunate. He had prior obligation. You're excused, Mr. Baker, but it would have been great to have been able to have a chance to talk with Charlie Baker, the president of the NCAA, if I haven't already said that. But we did have a chance to talk with some other special guests, and I had a chance, as well as Chase Hartzell, to talk with the GAC commissioner, Will Prewitt. He talked about, one thing that he talked a lot about was that how there should be 4 teams from the GAC in the playoffs, and I could not agree more. But then also got to talk with the executive director of the AFCA, Todd Berry, and of course Todd Knight is the president of the AFCA, so there's that personal connection there. So let's take a look at those interviews with Prewitt and Berry.
Chase Hartzell joined by Chris Gay, and we have another special guest joining us right now, Great American Conference Commissioner Will Prewitt. Commissioner Prewitt, welcome.
Hey, great to be here. Always fun. Be part of the Battle of the Ravine, and what a great day for football.
Well, you have a busy weekend this week because it's not only the end of football season, but the soccer championships are wrapping up right now. Volleyball's coming up next week, and with that, the postseason of football following right after.
Yeah, crossover season's always a busy time in college athletics, but particularly this year right now we have 2 soccer championships going on in Oklahoma. We have rivalry football games all over the place. 3 in Arkansas, 3 in Oklahoma today. Basketball started last night. Volleyball tournament next week. Football playoffs next week. Certainly expect the GAC to be represented with at least 1 team. Depending on the results of this game, a 2nd team. And really, Chase, I think you've heard me give this spiel before. I really think that our playoff system is really inequitable with how the bids are broken down per region. Super Region 3 is so much the strength of Division II football. I think it's beyond time that we move away from strict regionalization because there are 4 playoff-worthy teams in the GAC, and it's disappointing that at least 2 of those won't move on.
Yeah, and I do have to ask, is this your first Battle of the Ravine, or?
It is not. I think this is my 5th, but the first time that I've been able to be here, on the field or not having. I've been on the field or not got here in time. It's the first time I've got to see the team walk across. So, one of the unique parts of the game that's really fun to see in person.
I know it might be fishing here, but you have a particular side that you're rooting for, or are you going to remain a neutral party?
Hey, as long as all 12 schools pay my salary, I am dead neutral. And that's one of the underrated hard parts of the commissioner's job is to make sure that you've got enough neutral clothes that, wherever you go, you've got something. I've learned never in Arkadelphia to wear red, purple, or anything that could be mistaken for either one. So I'm in neutral white and gray today.
Well, you can wear purple. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, Commissioner Prewitt, you mentioned regionalization. One of the strengths of the Great American Conference is that it has maintained regional rivalries like this. Even in the light of the expansion of football, you're seeing conferences break down at higher levels and change around. You're seeing some of those regional rivalries, change up a little bit, but here in Rivalry Week, we still have a lot of great rivalry matchups going on, including this one right here.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I'm really proud of, and I think we represent what college athletics should be about, more so than, I don't want to knock my counterparts in Division I, but, just across our league today, we have the Battle of the Ravine, the Battle of the Timberlands in South Arkansas between UAM and SAU, the 100-year war between East Central and Southeastern. Even though the teams have struggled, Northwestern, Southwestern, those teams have really, it's been a long year for both, but that's going to be a great football game because those schools don't like each other. And I think you lose a lot when you lose that local touch and you play people that, you go to work with a graduate or have families from these other schools. So it makes this weekend fun.
Well, I got to admit, this has to be one of the most unique rivalries in all of college football, don't you? I mean, just a 15-minute walk across the street for Henderson to Ouachita, Ouachita to Henderson. So, is this the most unique rivalry that you've ever been a part of?
Oh, I think it's the most unique rivalry in college athletics. There's no place else where the teams can literally and do walk to each other's games. The intermingling in town. Some of these other great rivalry games we talk about, the coaches don't run into each other at Walmart or at Fat Boys or wherever in town. It's unique in and of itself. A small town with two colleges creates a great rival.
And it's amazing that as small of a town as Arkadelphia is, just 10,000, these two schools have such great school spirit, and they attract crowds of thousands each and every year for this rivalry game.
Yeah, I think that's a great testimony to these schools and small college football here in Arkansas, that there's really still support for it.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Prewitt, for joining us. Enjoy the game today on the sidelines, and we're looking forward to another fun matchup, not only here today, but around the Great American Conference. We've got a lot of fun games in Rivalry Week.
Absolutely. Guys, thank you.
At this time, we have another very special guest joining us, the Executive Director of the AFCA, Todd Berry. Todd, welcome to our show.
My pleasure. What a great, beautiful day it is. Every day's a great day for football, but today's a special one.
They don't come much better than this, and you've had a lot of experience with college football. Can you talk about your role that you serve in at the AFCA?
Absolutely. I was a 34-year coach, collegiate coach during that time frame, head coach at 3 different places. About 8 years ago, our executive director of our association, which has about 12,000 members, basically he retired, and I was fortunate enough to be nominated and took over that position 8 years ago. My role basically is to serve as the coach's lobbyist. I spend most of my time up in Indianapolis with the NCAA, or actually even in New York City with the NFL, because we represent all the NFL coaches also.
Well, I know you have to spend a lot of time with some Division I coaches, but how often do you spend time with Division II coaches?
You're right. I try to spend about as much time with every level as I can, because our organization, again, 12,000 members from the NFL all the way down through Division III. And, so I try to make sure that it's my responsibility to make sure that I'm up to speed on exactly what their problems are. But certainly, FBS, as we all know, the Division I group, they're taking up an awful lot of time right now because of some of the things that they're doing. So, but I'm really happy to be here at this game. As you all know, Todd Knight is our president this year of our association. They've done a wonderful job being a part of our board. And this is part of my way of giving thanks to the group, is to be at this game and kind of celebrate with him the end of his tenure, because here in January he'll be turning his position over to another coach.
Well, if I understand how we were talking, this is your first battle of the Ravine.
It is.
And I know you've been through Arkansas doing recruiting to your head coaching tenure, but what is your what are your impressions of this atmosphere so far?
Oh, it's incredible. This is, you love rivalries, and anytime that you get to a rivalry game and just see some of the passions and the colors and just the kind of, there's a different feel about those games. As I was mentioning earlier, I was part of Army Navy. I was the head coach at Army for a while, and probably one of the greatest rivalries there is. But in the same sense, every place that you go, that rival that they have is equally, it's just as important and just as passionate.
Well, speaking to your coaching experience, you mentioned the Army-Navy game. You've been in a lot of big rivalry games yourself. As a coach, from a coaching perspective, what advice would you offer to these players getting ready to play in this big atmosphere here today?
I think, as a coach in these kind of games, you really don't have to get your players up to play. Matter of fact, if anything, generally you have to tune them down a little bit. And so it's just kind of that reminder about, while we recognize this is more of a game, let's be honest, than some of the others, right? This one's more important. But the way that we play and the way that we approach the game and the way that the mentality that we go, attack the game with, that's never changes. And so let's make sure that as we go out there that we're executing, we're doing those kind of things that we know as a team how to do.
Well, I know you're a neutral party. I've been asking people this all day. If you had to choose a side, there's only one right answer, by the way, but if you had to choose a side, which side would it be?
Well, Scott over at Henderson State, I've known him for a long time. He actually coached one of my quarterbacks in junior college. But I'm an all Todd Knight kind of guy right now, right? So I'm Ouachita Baptist all the way today.
Let's go.
Well, it was great being able to talk with both Prewitt and Barry, and great to have them make the trip down to Arkadelphia. Definitely, something that I can add to my resume is that I get a chance to talk to these people. But Saturday was a good day for all of us. I'll play a few more clips of our pregame show from Battle of the Ravine, but I know Ouachita did come away with a loss for their last regular season game. But as we talked about earlier, a lot of good things that are going to be happening here in Arkadelphia in football and, of course, in all the other sports. So thank you so much for tuning in to episode number 12 of the Roar Rundown Sports Podcast. Tune in next week for unlucky number 13. Well, stay safe, have a good day, and go Tigers.